Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of our Turn Your Idea into a Story challenge. It is officially the second day of the challenge, and today we are working on plot. So I'm just going to give everybody a couple of seconds to join us, and then I'll get started. And in the meantime, I'm going to share this over to my Facebook group. So if you're listening live and you want to say hi, please do. If you want to put questions in the comments, if you have questions about plot or any of the stuff we've talked about up to this point, put them in the comments because I'm happy to answer them for you. And I'm just going to share this to my Facebook group so that way anyone who wants to join can. So welcome to the live stream. All right. So like I said, we are talking about plot today. Let's get that thing going. All right. Welcome to the live stream. For people who are just joining, hey guys, how's it going? Like I said, say hi in the comments if you want to say hi. And if you have questions about plot or anything else that we've been talking about, please put them in the comments as well. If you want to share your plot to get some feedback, please feel free to do that. I'm going to just talk through the stuff that we covered in the email and then answer questions for anyone and give you some examples so that you can just have an illustrated idea of what plot is. I gave you an example in the email today, but just in case you want some more examples, I have some more. And also, if you're watching this and you haven't joined the challenge yet, so if you are just jumping in and you want to actually get the emails sent to you so you have all of the content for the challenge, you can go to jenniferblanchard.net/story challenge to get all of the content. And then you'll get the emails automatically sent to you with all of the content for the challenge. And of course, the videos are recorded, so there'll be replays if you want to check them out after the fact. All right, so I'm going to jump in. If anyone wants to, again, ask questions or anything, just put them in the comments because I will be sure to answer them for you. If you're watching this as a replay, same thing. You can put comments in, questions in, and I'll come back later on and check them out and answer them for you. Okay, so let us jump right into talking about plot. Okay, so plot is basically just what happens in your story. So it's the actual what happens. You may have heard this called premise. It's another way of talking about it. I like to use plot because I just think it's a clearer term. But premise means the same thing, the plot of your story. Now, we talked yesterday about concept, and concept is basically the landscape of your story, so it's going to be the platform that the rest of the story is set on. So I like to think of it as a landscape because it basically becomes the foundation for your story, and then from there, you bring in your plot, and that actually brings your concept to life. So plot is very important, but it is not by itself the only thing. You definitely have all these other pieces, and we're going to continue talking about some of the other pieces over the next few days. And then at the end of this, I'll tell you more about how you can work on those other pieces if you want to continue working with me. Okay, so with plot, there are 5 questions that I recommend you answer. And when you answer these questions, you can pretty much have your plot put together. Now, this is very general, so you definitely are going to want to go deeper on, the actual plot and what's going to happen. But this is just going to give you a very general overview of what your plot is and just sort of help you. Hey, Cynthia, how are you? Welcome to the live stream. Glad you're joining. Okay, so the 5 questions that you want to answer. And if you were getting the emails, these questions were in the emails, so you have them written down for you. And like I said, if you're not getting the emails yet and you want them, jenniferblanchard.net/story challenge to get the emails for this challenge so that you can have all of the content because I'm talking about it on the video, but I think it also helps to see it written out. Okay, so your 5 questions for answering to find your plot. So the first one is, who's my protagonist? So obviously in a story, you must have a protagonist. Hey, Laura. Good morning. So you must have a protagonist who's going to be your good guy. It's going to be the person who's going to go through the story, make a change, overcome the bad guy and defeat him at the end of the story. hopefully he'll defeat him. Maybe that doesn't always happen, but it mostly does. So you want to have one protagonist. Now, if you happen to be writing a story with multiple protagonists, so for example, if you're writing a romance and you have a guy and a girl, or if you're writing a story where there's multiple characters, basically you just want to make sure that you have one of those people who is your main protagonist. Otherwise, it ends up being too confusing and you don't have a clear story. So you want to have one protagonist who actually is going to be the person to step up, become the hero by the end of the story, defeat the bad guy, etc. So who's your main protagonist? That's the first answer to the question, who is the protagonist in the story? So that's your first question. Do I have to download an app when I hit live, nothing happening? I'm not sure what you mean. The Facebook app, you should be able to just go to facebook.com, log into your account and watch it on my Facebook page, facebook.com/dreamlifeorbust. That's my Facebook page. I'm not sure why you would need the app. You could definitely use the app. So if you have the app on your phone, you should be able to watch it there too. You shouldn't have to hit live because live is you broadcasting and you're not trying to broadcast, you're trying to watch a broadcast. So if you just go to facebook.com/dreamlifeorbust, that's my Facebook page. And because I'm broadcasting right now, it should be the very top thing that you see. If for some reason you're not seeing it, you could also go to the 1% Writers Club group because I just shared the video in there as well. So you could watch it in there. You should be able to watch it on your app, on your iPad, on your iPhone, as well as on your computer through the browser. So yeah, I'm not sure why you're not seeing it. You're commenting, so I'm assuming that means you're seeing the video. So yeah, I'm not totally sure. Anyway, okay, so back to the question. So your first question is, who is your protagonist? Now your second question is, what does the protagonist want? Now this is really, really important thing because you have to have some sort of a goal in the story. If you don't have a goal in the story, there's really no purpose for it. So the whole idea here is that you have a goal for your character and the character wants something very badly, and then there's going to be a bad guy who comes in to try to stop him from getting it. And then, of course, a journey that ensues while he tries to overcome this bad guy and get what it is that he wants. Now, sometimes in a story, the character has a goal at the beginning, and then that goal changes at the first plot point. So when your first plot point comes in, which is basically when your antagonist gets introduced and we find out what's at stake for the story, what does the antagonist want, how does what he wants oppose what the protagonist wants. Sometimes your first plot point will raise the stakes on the goal that's already in play, or sometimes it will change the goal completely. So basically, they have a goal, and then this bad guy comes in and gives them another goal, so basically an obstacle that they have to overcome before they can achieve the first goal that they have. So there's two ways that that's really done. So it could be where the stakes just get raised, so it's the same goal, but now the stakes are higher for that character to achieve the goal. Or it could be that another goal comes in first that they have to overcome, and a challenge that basically gets introduced by your antagonist, and then from there, he has to overcome that before he could achieve the goal that he had in the beginning. And I have a couple examples that I could give you for that. So we're talking about, different movies and things. And I like to use movies because I feel like a lot of people have seen them. And plus, it's just sort of easier to watch a lot of movies quickly and sort of deconstruct them. Whereas a novel takes a lot longer, obviously. So a couple examples for that. So in my novel Soundtrack that I wrote and published, her goal is that she wants this promotion for her dream job. It's this job she's been working toward for 5 years at this company, and that's her goal, is to get this promotion. And she's doing everything she needs to. She's in the perfect place for it. But then what happens is that at the first plot point, when the antagonist gets introduced, all of a sudden the stakes get raised on that goal, and she has the same goal throughout the story, but now she has another obstacle in the way that she has to overcome before she can achieve her goal of getting her dream job. So that's an example of the stakes being raised by the antagonist. Now, in another example, so Happy Gilmore, which if you've seen that, it's a 90s movie with Adam Sandler, really great story. In that one, his goal in the beginning of the story is to become a professional hockey player. And then at the first plot point, when we get introduced to the antagonist, we basically get a brand new goal, which is that his grandmother's house is being repossessed. She owes the government $270,000 in back taxes. And so now he has to stop what he's been doing, trying to become a pro hockey player, to now achieve this goal of helping his grandmother get her house back. So it becomes an obstacle in the way of him getting his first goal. But then what happens is that by getting that obstacle overcome and defeating the bad guy, he ends up getting the goal from the beginning, which was slightly different. So he ends up being a professional golfer instead of a professional hockey player, but using the same skill set. So by overcoming the antagonist and defeating him and achieving that goal, he also achieved the first goal. So that's really how goals work in a story. So you want to know who your protagonist is and then what his goal is in the story. So what is it that he wants? What's the motivation or backstory behind it, etc. So you're really just getting clear on that. So then the next part of your plot is that you want to know who your antagonist is. So who's going to be your bad guy? Who's going to be the person who's going to come in and oppose what your protagonist wants and try to stop them from getting it? Who's that person going to be? Now, if you have an antagonistic force, so for example, like let's say you're doing nature or you're doing the government or something as your antagonist, and it's going to be a force rather than a person, I would always still recommend that you come up with a person who can personify that antagonistic force. So that way, we're not just getting, a storm is our antagonist, but we have a person representing that antagonism. So we have the storm maybe as the antagonistic force, but then there's a person also in play who sort of runs the course of the story. So an example for that one would be the movie, what's it called? The Vow. So if you've seen that one with Rachel McAdams and Channing Tatum, in that story, she basically has amnesia. So amnesia is the antagonistic force in the story. So it goes through the entire story. She lost her memory. She doesn't remember anybody that, she remembers her family and stuff, but she doesn't remember marrying this guy and being with him for 7 years. And so the antagonistic force is, of course, her amnesia. However, that's really not a great antagonist because while it's a force, it doesn't really get in your face with opposition. And so in that story, there's a bad guy. So there's her ex-boyfriend, her ex-fiance, who comes in as the personified antagonist to represent her amnesia because she doesn't remember being married to Channing Tatum. And so all she remembers is that she was engaged to this other guy. So this other guy is the antagonist and he comes in to represent her amnesia. And, because that's all she remembers is that she was engaged to this guy. So he's the antagonist that now is going to oppose the protagonist, which is Channing Tatum's character, actually getting her back and helping her remember that they are married, that she does actually love him, that she does know him, etc. So that's sort of an example of how an antagonistic force gets personified. It's a really good idea to do this because otherwise, like I said, you don't really have that direct opposition, which you absolutely need to have enough conflict and dramatic tension in your story. So that's one thing to think about. So who is your antagonist in your story? Could be a force, but if it's a force, then give somebody to represent it. So if you're going to do the government as your antagonistic force, come up with one person who can represent the government. So maybe, a guy who works there or, an FBI agent or something like that. So he becomes your personified version of this bigger antagonistic force. So while the force is still in play, you also have this guy who can represent being that opposing force right there. Hey, Val, how are you? What's up, guys? So anyone who's just joining, I see a bunch of you are just popping in now. So I'm just going over the questions for how to figure out what your plot is. Now this is general, so you're definitely going to want to go deeper on this, but it's just a way of having a starting point to figure out the plot of your story. So the first few questions, in case you missed them, the first one is, who is my protagonist? What does my protagonist want? And the third question is, who is my antagonist? So now you want to know, what does your antagonist want that opposes what your protagonist wants? Now, this is the key thing to keep in mind here and to pay attention to, the opposition factor. Now, if you have an antagonist with a goal, but his goal doesn't actually oppose what your protagonist wants, then you don't actually have your plot yet. And this is very important because you don't want to have an antagonist who wants one thing and a protagonist who wants something else, and they don't actually butt up against each other. That's the whole point of a story, is that one person wants this and one person wants this, and they're constantly doing this the entire story until the end when it can be resolved and overcome. So what is it that your antagonist wants that's going to be in opposition to what your protagonist wants? So in the example I was talking about, Soundcheck, my story that I published, in that one, she wants her dream job. That's her goal in the story. Now, the antagonist wants to stop her from getting this job because he has a vendetta against her, basically. So he, at the first plot point, comes in and gives her this ridiculous project to take on and says, if you can do this, you can have your dream job, but if you don't do it, then you're fired, basically. So it's like an ultimatum for her. So that's his opposition to her goal, is that she wants this job, but he's going to stop her from getting it. So it becomes a thing that allows them to butt heads the entire story. And then, of course, she overcomes it by the end in some way and defeats the bad guy. So what does your antagonist want that's going to be in direct opposition to that goal that you said your protagonist had? Really, really important thing, opposition. If you learn nothing else in this challenge series, this is the thing to take away, is that your story must have opposition. Opposition is the thing that makes it a story. Without the opposition, it's just an episodic narrative. So you have to have the character wanting something in opposition to the other character. That's how a story works. And then the key thing here is to find out why. So your antagonist can't just oppose them for the hell of it. They have to actually have a compelling, believable reason for why they do. So what is it that they're doing? So in the example of the Happy Gilmore thing, we have this guy who comes in at the first plot point to tell us, hey, your grandmother's house is being repossessed, and, she has to come up with 270 grand by this date. Otherwise, we're going to sell the house to someone else. So his opposing goal is that, Happy Gilmore wants to save his grandma's house, and this guy wants to stop her from, he basically says, this is what's happening. And then, of course, there's another antagonist in that story. So that story has what I call a hierarchical antagonist, where basically he's working for the other guy. So they're not totally working together, because one works for the government and the IRS, and one is just another golfer who wants to stop him. But he basically comes in and buys the house, and so now he owns the house, so now Happy Gilmore has to defeat him to get the house back. So basically, hierarchical is that the first antagonist is related to, the house being taken away, and then this guy comes in to buy the house, and now he's the one who's in charge of the house. So it's all hierarchical because they basically are working together in some way. Now, another example of this is the movie Eraser. So if you've ever seen that, it's a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger from the 90s. I talk about 90s movies a lot because I just think they're really good. Also, I grew up with those movies, so for me, those are the ones that resonate the most. But in that story, at the first plot point, we get an antagonist who we can tell is not the actual antagonist, but we know that there's someone else behind it. So basically what's been introduced is a minion. So the minion is going to be somebody who is doing something antagonistic, but we know he's not the one in charge. There's somebody else controlling him. So it's hierarchical because he basically works for the antagonist who's above him. So in that story, the first plot point, we get introduced to the minions who are doing the dirty work. At the midpoint, we find out that this antagonist is actually Arnold's boss in the movie. So it's his boss that's doing all the antagonistic stuff. He's the one in charge of the guys who are trying to kill everybody. So that right there is your hierarchical, because you've got a person who's in charge at the top, and then there's the guy below him, and then there's the minion, but they're all tied together with the same cause and the same purpose, which is the whole point, is that you need to know why they want whatever goal that they have and why they are in direct opposition to this character. You want to have a compelling reason. So what you don't want is to go, oh, well, my antagonist wants to kill everybody in the world. Okay, but why? Why does he want to do that? Oh, because he's an evil guy. Okay, but that's not enough, because just being an evil guy is not enough motivation. And maybe in real life that does happen. I mean, I don't really know because I've never talked to anybody who is that evil, but the point is, in real life that's possible, but in a story you can't do that. In a story, everything has to make sense, has to be explained, has to have motivation behind it. It can't just be, well, he's an evil guy. Okay, well, fine, if he's an evil guy, but why? What is it that made him do this? What is his backstory? What is the stuff that, caused him to be this person now? What is his purpose to want this goal? So if he wants to destroy the world, what's the goal in that? And how is that opposing what your protagonist wants? And if it doesn't, then that's a really big red flag to know, okay, I need a different goal. So just to go back over the 5 questions, who is your protagonist? What does your protagonist want in the story? Who is your antagonist? What does your antagonist want in the story that opposes what your protagonist wants, and why? That's your 5 questions that will help you to figure out your plot. Now, the general plot statement, which you can use now, basically take those answers and fill in the gaps of this plot statement, which is a plot is basically a protagonist who wants something, an antagonist who opposes what the protagonist wants, and a journey that ensues because of it. So looking at that, put your answers into that. So who's your protagonist? What does he want? Who's your antagonist? What does he want that opposes what your protagonist wants? And then what's the journey for the rest of the story? So what are they going to have to do, overcome, defeat in order to achieve their goal at the end of the story? I see some questions coming in. I'm going to go back to them in a second, but I just want to sort of get this out before I do that. So that is your general plot definition. So if you can take your idea and actually turn it into that statement, then you've got a good starting point for your plot. Now, like I said, you're definitely going to want to go deeper on it and figure out more of the details. But if you could just answer those 5 questions and then write that statement, you automatically have yourself a plot that's a starting point for turning it into a full story. So really keep that in mind, is that these questions are going to basically bring you down into this is my plot. And then from there, you can develop out the rest of the story and what's going to specifically happen in it. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. Let me read some of these questions. Hang on a second. Should the antagonist be sympathetic? For example, Hannibal Lecter is a terrible person and serves as a great antagonist, but is so attractive as a character, and we have sympathy for him despite his sins. I mean, that's an option. So it's not that he has to be sympathetic. He can be. Yeah, that's for sure. So another great example of that is the movie Mr. Brooks. So if you've ever seen that one, Kevin Costner and Dane Cook, Demi Moore, basically he is a serial killer. So Kevin Costner's character is a serial killer, and he's been killing people for years, and he's never gotten caught. He's basically this like serial killer who's just very good at cleaning up after himself. So no one's ever found out that he's the one doing it. He's actually really well respected in his work that he does and in the society that he lives in. So he's sort of like this guy who you wouldn't expect to be a serial killer, but he is. Now, of course, that would not bring much sympathy to his character. However, his reasoning for it is that he's got multiple personalities, basically. So he's got this voice / character in his head who's constantly telling him to do bad stuff. And he gives into it more than he wants to. But you can see through the course of the story that he's actually very tortured by it. So even though he's technically our protagonist in the story, he's also got the antagonist inside him because he's, multiple personalities. So it's one of the ways that he sort of we have sympathy for him, because otherwise you're not going to get your viewers, your readers to actually root for this guy, because that's the whole point of a story, is that the protagonist has a goal, the antagonist opposes that goal, and now suddenly, you want to root for him to actually achieve it. So in that case, you have to build in that sympathy. So you sort of have to feel for him in order to believe that you would want to actually root for him to defeat his antagonist. So in this case, his antagonist, I would say, is a force, which is this other guy in his head, this other voice who is telling him what to do all the time. And then there's another antagonist who personifies that antagonist. So basically, Dane Cook is his antagonist in the story. There's a couple of them, really, but I would say he's sort of the main one who catches him in the act, takes pictures of it, and then blackmails him and says, hey, I'm going to turn you in if you don't help me, if you don't teach me how to be a serial killer, basically. If you don't let me come with you on a job and actually, kill a bunch of people, I'm going to turn you in. And so then there's an investigator, Demi Moore's character, who's been investigating him all these years trying to find him, but it's never worked. So he gets away from it at the end, obviously. But the whole idea here is that inner demon that he has, that personification of it, is outside in Dane Cook's character. So he's basically opposing him in that way. So I feel like sympathy is sort of built into some of that. And so you sort of have to feel for the character in some way in order to want to continue on the story. But he doesn't have to be sympathetic. So I think sometimes antagonists are that's just who they are. They're just assholes. And the other thing to keep in mind is that they believe that they're right. So that's a really important thing. And there's a great guest post on Larry Brooks's blog by Art Holcomb, and he is a screenwriter, teacher, just big in the industry. He's a great storyteller. He wrote a guest post, and I will try to go get the link after this video, and I'll post it in the comments if anyone wants to check it out. Or you can just go to Larry's blog and use the search box. And I can't remember the title, but basically the article is all about antagonists and how to create them. And one of the things he talks about is the idea that sometimes antagonists just believe they're right. So it's not that they're even evil people sometimes, they're bad people. It's just that they believe something that we don't believe. So they believe that the world needs to be, exploded, or they believe that all these people need to be killed. Well, they just have their own motivation for it and their own reason to think that they're right. Now, we obviously don't agree with them, and neither does the protagonist, and that's the whole point of the story. But it definitely doesn't have to be somebody you sympathize with, but it could be. So, that's totally up to you to how you want to do your antagonist. And I think that's another example of how a story is not formulaic. So we talked yesterday a little bit about structure and the idea that a lot of writers don't want to use structure, or they don't want to plan their stories out because they're afraid, well, if I do that, my story is going to be formulaic. But it's not, because there's so many options for what you could do. So you could have a sympathetic antagonist, or you could have a non-sympathetic antagonist. It's totally up to you what you want to do. It's your story. Let's see. Hey, Deborah. Hi, Sheila. Glad everybody could join live today. Okay, on the flip side of the antagonist, can our protagonist be an unlikable character? Perhaps a character who is stubborn, womanizer, dishonest, but is going on their own journey and has someone or something opposing them, is that something we should avoid? All right, so the Mr. Brooks example, I think answers that, which is basically he's not a good guy, so he's a serial killer. He's killed a lot of people and he's never gotten caught, so that automatically makes us see him as a bad guy. However, this is a very important thing to keep in mind with your protagonist. There has to be something likable about him or relatable about him. So he doesn't have to be, you don't have to like him, you don't have to want to be his friend, want to hang out with him, but you definitely have to want to empathize for him. If the reader won't empathize with your character, your story is dead. There's no way to fix it. There's no way to come back from that. You cannot have a character who your reader cannot empathize with. Because the whole point of a story is that you want to go on the journey with the protagonist and find out what happens to them. So if you have a womanizer character and that's all he is and he doesn't have any redeeming quality, no one's going to want to join him on this journey to root for him and hope that he defeats the bad guy. They're going to say, screw that guy, he gets what he deserves. He's a womanizer, he's a jackass. There has to be something redeeming about him that makes you want to root for him. Because that's the whole point of a story, is that people want a vicarious experience. They want to come to a story and get lost in this other world, get lost in this other character's journey. So if your character is stubborn, is a womanizer, is a dishonest person, whatever, in that case, give him a redeeming quality, something that makes you root for him. So in the example of Mr. Brooks, which I think is a perfect example for this question, again, he's a serial killer. You don't want to root for a serial killer. You want him to get caught. But because you can see the struggle that he has with not really wanting to be this person and not really wanting to kill people, it's just that he has this inner voice, this inner demon that tells him to do it, and sometimes he can't defeat it. So he does sometimes, and then other times he can't. So you see the inner struggle that he has. So even though he's a serial killer and you normally wouldn't care for him, you actually kind of feel bad for this guy. The writing is so good in this movie, you actually feel bad for him. So you feel like, oh my God, this guy doesn't want to be killing people. He doesn't want to be a serial killer. You feel bad for him. So when Dane Cook comes in and says, hey, I caught you and I'm going to turn you in if you don't, bring me on a job with you. Well, now he's so basically right before that happens, he decides he's done. He's not going to kill any more people. He's all done. He's never going to do it again. And then this guy comes in and says, hey, you have to do it again because I want to be there with you. So now we feel bad for him because we're like, man, he just decided he wasn't going to do it anymore and he was doing better. And then this guy comes in and threatens him and makes him want to do it again. Tells him he has to do it again. So basically you root for him now to defeat the bad guy and to not get caught because you're like, man, he was trying to clean up his life. He was trying to become a better person. Let's just make him become a better person. So in that case, even though he is a serial killer, you still feel for him. I think same thing with that show. Is it called Castle? I'm not sure if that's the name. It's the one where he's also a serial killer, but he kills serial killers. So it's the same thing. You kind of are like, well, he's a bad guy. He's a serial killer, but he kills other serial killers. So is he really that bad? No, you want to root for him because you want to see these other serial killers die. He's only a serial killer because he's trying to kill serial killers, right? So it's just that idea of if you are going to give him something that isn't likable, that he is at least has something about him that's redeeming and that makes you, Dexter, sorry, yes, you're right, thank you, thank you, I don't remember the name of the show, in Dexter, not Castle. Castle is a totally different story. I'm really bad at titles, remembering them, so thank you, Laura. But yeah, so the idea here is that, yep, Dexter, thank you, totally wrong with the title there. But anyway, you know what I'm saying, though. It's the whole point of he is a serial killer, but he has the redeeming quality but he's a good guy because he's trying to kill other serial killers, So that makes you want to root for him and want to go on this journey with him. And that's really the whole point. So your character doesn't have to be likable, but they do have to be somebody that your reader will root for, that will basically want to go on this journey with them, that they can empathize with the struggle that they have going on. So in Mr. Brooks, and that was one of the reasons I love that movie, and the reason I talk about it a lot when I talk about story is that because the writing is so good, you just feel so deep for this guy. I feel bad for him. I know he's a serial killer, but I feel bad because I see how much he struggles with it and how much he doesn't actually want to be doing it, but he just can't help himself. It's beyond his control. And so you root for him to defeat Dane Cook, to not get caught, to get back to the place where he was right before that, where he didn't want to do this anymore. So that's a really good example if you want to see that movie to help sort of illustrate how that all works. Okay, Deborah, yes, please. The guest post will be brilliant to read. Awesome. Yeah, so I will make sure to go and put the link in so that you guys can see it. But like I said, you can also go to storyfix.com, and in the search box, you could put in Art Holcomb or antagonist or something, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it as well. Okay, so if anyone has questions or anything, put them in the comments because I'm going to wrap this up soon. I'm going to give you some examples now of some more plots just to give you an idea of, how you sort of bring your story to life with your plot. So, oh, my dog's getting a little grouchy. You may hear him bark in a second. Oh, hang on. Okay, buddy. Can you come back over here? Come on. All right. My dog he's watching a documentary about the Eagles, and some guy just made him angry. So he ran over to the TV and barked. Come here. All right. Anyway, so some examples. So and these are movie examples. Okay, so in the movie Leap Year, so that's a movie with Amy Adams, basically the plot in that movie is that a girl is going to propose to her boyfriend on Leap Day, but before she can do that, she meets an innkeeper who basically causes her to rethink everything. So it's a love story in this case, so the antagonist is the love interest / not at first love interest, but becomes love interest. And so in that one, your concept is that she has this, it's like I forgot what they call it, like basically a history or like I forgot the name of it. But basically the idea is in Ireland on Leap Day, you can propose to your boyfriend if you are a woman, but that's the only time you're allowed to do that. Other than that, the guy has to ask the girl. So she knows about this like little history, and she decides that she's going to go do that. She's going to Ireland to find her boyfriend, and she's going to propose to him on Leap Day. So the concept of leap year is that idea, is that you can propose to your boyfriend on Leap Day. That's the concept of the story. And then the plot is that as she goes to go and do that, she meets this innkeeper who basically becomes her love interest as the story goes on. So she has a journey that she has to go on and all this stuff that happens. And then by the end of the story, she's in love with that guy instead. So, so that's really how that concept and plot sort of work together. Okay, so another example is Olympus Has Fallen. So if you've seen that one, Gerard Butler. Basically, that story, terrorists take the White House hostage, including the president, so they can force the U.S. out of their country for good. So the antagonist there is a guy who is a terrorist, obviously, and he's with a group of terrorists, but he represents the bigger group. And they take the White House hostage, the president, all the people there, because they're trying to get the U.S. to come out of their country. So right now, the U.S. has invaded their country, trying to help them out, but they're the terrorists who want to stop them from being there. So they're doing their thing to try to stop them. And then, of course, Gerard Butler's character is the protagonist, and he's going to go in and save the day. So his goal is to obviously save the president and get everybody out safely, and the terrorists want to stop him from doing that. So that's your opposition right there. Okay, my best friend's wedding. So a girl finds out her best friend is getting hitched, so she decides to sabotage the wedding and win him back. So in that one, your antagonist is obviously the other woman. That's your opposition. So she wants the guy, and this girl's already engaged to him, so you got your opposition right there. And then another example, Billy Madison. So we talked about this yesterday in concept, and the idea of the concept of Billy Madison is going back to school, grade school, as an adult. So basically, he goes back to school, has to go through grades 1 through 12 again in order to graduate, get the company, prove himself to his father, etc. But see, going back to school and going back to school as an adult is not a plot. So this was, and like I said, we talked about this yesterday, so if you haven't checked the video from yesterday out, I highly recommend you do that. But basically the idea is that, well, if you just have this thing, oh, this guy's going to go back to school as an adult, okay, but that's not a plot. And the mistake writers make a lot of the times is that they think it is, and so they'll run with the story. So what ends up happening is we get an episodic narrative of a character going back to school as an adult, and yeah, maybe a bunch of conflicted stuff happens, but it's not an actual plot because we didn't have the opposition yet. So in this story, what brings in the plot and the opposition is that a slacker heir, so that's Billy Madison, is at risk of losing his father's multi-million-dollar hotel chain, so he makes a bet. He'll go through grades 1 through 12 again and graduate so he can prove himself and get the company. So there's somebody else who's supposed to get the company instead. There's your antagonist. And the opposition is that Billy wants the company, and so does this guy. So now they're going to butt heads the whole story, and he's going to try to stop him from winning the bet, basically, so that he can get the company. So that's your plot built off of your concept. So really kind of seeing how concept and premise can play together. premise, plot, same thing. All right, so that is what I have for you guys today. If you have any questions or anything else, put them in the comments now because I'm going to wrap this up. And like I said, this is a 5-day challenge, so we have 3 more days to go. Over the next few days, we're going to really be diving in and refining the stuff we've been talking about here so that by the time the 5 days are over, you actually walk away with a concept and a plot for your story, which you can then develop further if you choose to. So questions, anything like that? Let's see. Ooh. I studied screenplay structure and breakdown. I've noticed when watching movies, there are so many that are written in such a formulated way. I can notice each plot point and formula. It's frustrating. This was my struggle with formula writings. What you said yesterday about rewording certain words I felt was a great idea for those of us understanding we need the structure, but our minds reject certain words. Having said that, I love movies that capture you, immediately taking away from the analysis and into story. So do you have advice or an article you've read that addresses this issue? Well, first of all, there is no formula. So you might be calling it formula, but it's not a formula. Now, there are certain things that happen in certain genres, so this is going to be a genre-specific thing. So, for example, in a love story, so a romance, a story that is an actual romance. So there's a difference between a romance and a women's fiction or chick lit or any of that stuff. There's a big difference. With a romance, the antagonist is always the love interest. And in a romance, the theme is always love conquers all. Now, this is a genre-specific thing. So it's not that it's a formula, it's just this is what is required to write in this genre, or to be a movie in this genre. Same thing with like a thriller, same thing with a mystery. So the mysteries, a lot of the times the first body drops as the hook of the story, and then at the first plot point, the detective decides to take the case, or sometimes the second body drops at the first plot point, and then detective decides to take the case. So that is how mysteries work. There's a very specific way of doing a story, but it's not a formula. So it's not like, okay, so you have to have a body drop here. Okay, but it's not a formula as in telling you what has to happen. It's just this is the way that a mystery works. That's what makes it a mystery versus another type of story. So same thing with like a romance. Well, the love interest being the antagonist, the main story being the love story, and the fact that it's love conquers all, well, that is specific to romance. But if you're writing chick lit or you're writing women's fiction with romantic undertones, you're writing something else, those things don't have to apply anymore. So it's not really a formula as much as it's just a genre-specific requirement in order to be considered that genre. So you could write differently and then it wouldn't be considered that genre. So you know what I'm saying? And, oh, thanks, that makes a difference. Okay, good, I'm glad. Because that's the whole idea here, is that it's not a formula. It's just that certain genres have certain things that have to happen in order to count as that genre. And then, of course, the reader. So you want to keep in mind your reader. A reader expects certain things, especially if they read a certain genre a lot. They expect that certain things are going to happen. So if they don't happen, it's like, well, what is this? This isn't the story that I wanted. This isn't a real love story. So that's why it's really important to figure out what genre do you want to write in, and if you have one that has specific things like that, making sure that you're sticking to that stuff. So another thing for a romance, with that, you have to have a happily ever after ending or a happy for now ending. And if your ending doesn't have those, it's not a romance. It's something else. And so really, really key thing to keep here is that if you are writing a certain genre, to just know what those little things are, because it is going to make a difference for your story. Now, again, like you were saying with structure and formula, well, just choose to change the wording on it. So rather than looking at it like that, as it's a formula, it's a structure, I like to just think of it as a framework. And really, if you think about it, it's better to have that than it is to not have it. So I know a lot of times one of the big fears that writers have is that they'll lose their creativity. They won't be able to be as creative if they're following structure, or if they have, their framework to work in, so the story structure, let's say. But the problem is that without that, your story just goes everywhere and you don't have something to contain it. So you really have to have the structure to make it a story and to really contain and to give you a framework to work within. And what's kind of nice about it is that while you think that limits your creativity, it actually does the opposite. It unleashes it, because you're not having to sit at a blank page and figure out what the hell do I do now, but you've got this framework of, okay, this is where my first plot point goes, and this is where my midpoint goes, and you can use those pieces to be more creative. How can I bring my first plot point to life in a way that no one's done before, or in a way that makes it more exciting or more interesting? So you're not looking at it like a formula. It's not like, oh, I have to do it has to be this one exact thing. And if you look at different stories that are out there, you can see that that happens, that the first plot point is not quite what you think. So there was a story a few years ago. Can't think of the name of it, of course. I have a horrible time with titles and names. But basically, it had Channing Tatum in it, and it had the girl from the Dragon Tattoo movie. I forgot her name too. But basically, the idea is that she kills her husband because she's on this drug. What the hell is it called? I don't know. Maybe one of you guys knows. If you do know, put it in the comments, because I can't stand when I can't remember the name. But basically what happens is that she kills her husband and then blames it on this drug she's been taking, which basically makes you sleepwalk. So she killed him while she was sleepwalking. So now she's, of course, on trial for it and all this stuff. But she's like, I was sleepwalking. I was on this pill my doctor gave me. So in that story, we have a moment where, oh my God, this guy gets killed. So she's sleepwalking and she kills him. Very much feels like the first plot point. However, it's happening way too late in the story for it to be the first plot point. So the first plot point was actually a very subtle moment early on where she asked the doctor specifically to give her that drug. So she clearly knew what she was asking for. But because it was so subtle, you don't even notice it. And then at the pinch point, we get, oh my God, she killed her husband on this drug. That feels like the first plot point, but it's happening too late. So there's a really fun way to just sort of twist it. So rather than making the first plot point when she killed her husband, they made it where she asked for the drug. So it kind of just builds the story. But what's cool is that it's not a formula. The writer didn't have to make the first plot point when she killed the husband. She just knew what the purpose of the structure was and what had to happen in order to fit the definition of structure. And I'm not going to go into structure and all of this because there's definitely just way too much to talk about. And if you're interested in structure, then stick around at the very end because I'm going to tell you about how you could work with me on your structure. But just keeping in mind that it's not formula. It's definitely a framework, and it just makes it work better. Let's see. Something I read a while back somewhere. Every antagonist thinks he is the protagonist of his own story. Yes, and that's exactly what I was talking about with the Art Holcomb guest post, is that he's saying in there, every antagonist believes that he's right. He believes that he's doing the right things, he's in the right place. So he is the protagonist of his own journey and his own story. Now, of course, we have a different view of it, and so does our protagonist. But the antagonist in his own mind definitely feels that way. I like the structure. I'm understanding how to create my format like that. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Great. That's great. Because again, structure for me was the turning point of my storytelling journey. So up until I started learning about structure in 2009, I had no idea how to write a good story. And every time I wrote a story, it would be an episodic narrative where we basically would get the day-to-day life of a character. Maybe it was conflicted, maybe there was drama, but there was no opposition and there was no real story happening because there wasn't a direct antagonist, there wasn't the opposition. And so without all that, it doesn't work. And that's structure brings the story to life. So yes, it is a framework, but it is not a formula. All right, so if you wanted to so again, this is a free challenge I'm doing. There are emails that go with the videos. So if you want the emails and you haven't been getting them, you can get them by going to jenniferblanchard.net/story-challenge and get the emails. And then, of course, all the videos are recorded, so you can go back and watch them over and over again, as well as, you have the content in the emails. Now, if you do want to learn more about structure and how to take the plot, the concept that you've been coming up with for this challenge and actually turn it into a story and actually create the structure for your story, then be sure to check out my upcoming workshop that starts on September 11th. We're in early bird right now, so you can get $100 off the full workshop price if you sign up by this weekend. Go to jenniferblanchard.net/nano edition. So basically I'm doing a story planning workshop that's a pre-National Novel Writing Month workshop. So basically helping you plan your story, get your story plan figured out, your structure, your scenes ready to go so that when November 1st hits, you can just hit the ground running, get your 50,000 words written, and you've got your story plan to work from so that you're not sitting down and trying to find your story as you write, but you've got it figured out ahead of time. I guarantee you that by doing that, it's going to be the best 50,000 word novel you've ever written. Because anytime I've written with a story plan, my first draft is always a million times better than it would have been if I just sat down and started writing, which is why I run the story planning workshop twice a year at minimum, sometimes more than that. So if you do want to go deeper on structure and figure out all of your pieces, that's the place to do it. And you're going to get support from me. It's an 8-week program, and we're going through every little piece of story structure, craft, everything that you need to make your story come to life. And you can find that at jenniferblanchard.net/nano edition, NANO edition. Sheila, in your question 2, you say, what does the protagonist want? Want can be something that he wants to keep rather than gain, right? You mean like they have something that they don't want to lose, so they're going to keep, like you're saying their goal is to keep whatever it is that they have? I mean, that's a possibility for sure. And especially if you're going to bring in an antagonist who wants the same thing that they're keeping. And so, for example, like let's say it's a fantasy story and the character has some jewel or something that she wants to hang on to, but then there's an antagonist now who's going to be in opposition to her keeping that thing. So he wants it too. So now she's got to protect it. She's got to keep it away from him. She's got to find a way to hang on to it without him getting a hold of it. So yeah, it could definitely be something that they want to keep versus gain. The whole idea is that whatever it is she wants can be in direct opposition to what your antagonist wants, and also that it creates stakes for your protagonist by being there. So if she has a gem that she's trying to keep and this guy's trying to take it away from her, that creates stakes automatically because now there's a fight of, well, he's going to try to get it from her and she's got to try to keep it. So yeah, it can work either way. It can be something they want to keep, something they want to gain. It's up to you what the goal is. That's the fun part. So again, it's not a formula because yeah, there are questions for you to answer and yeah, there are plot points and things that need to be in place, but there's no rule that it has to be this, it has to be that. You get to decide. And that's the fun part. That's where the creativity comes in and really becomes the thing that allows you to use the framework to bring your creativity to life. And for me, story planning has been the best way to make that happen. I won't even write a draft now without a story plan. I refuse. I won't even start a draft if I haven't got my story plan figured out. And the reason is because I automatically know that I'm going to have to do a full draft rewrite, and I refuse to do that. I can't do it. I've done it way too many times in the past, and I can't do it anymore. So for me, I plan my story in full before I write it. I know all of my pieces of structure. I know all the scenes that have to be there. I know what the purpose of every scene is. I know who my characters are, what they want, what's going to oppose them. I know all of that stuff before I sit down to write, which is why, like I said, this workshop is going to help you do that because that's the key to having a successful first draft. One that you don't have to rewrite the whole thing. Like, yes, you're going to have to rewrite stuff. You're going to have to revise and make changes. There's no way to write a perfect first draft. But if you plan your story first, if you really develop it, flesh out the pieces, figure out your story structure, figure out the scenes you're going to need, when you sit down to write, not only is the story going to be better because you already know everything, but it's also going to be a lot easier for you to write it because when you sit down, you have a prompt every time. Oh, I'm writing a scene where this happens. Okay. And what's cool is even though you have a story plan, it doesn't tell you everything. So it gives you the basics of what has to happen in your story, but then from there, you get to be creative in how you execute it. So that's the whole thing is when I write a scene out, I'm not writing out every little detail. I'm just writing out, okay, who's in the scene, when's it taking place, where's it taking place, and what information has to be in this scene in order for it to move the story forward. That's all I know when I sit down to write it. So then I get to be creative and bring it to life while keeping in mind these pieces that I've identified as important to be in the scene. And that's why I do story planning, and that's why it's been super successful for me to actually do that, because before I did that, I could never finish a story. It was just never possible for me. I tried, and I just failed over and over again. So Soundcheck, the novel that I published, is the first time I was able to finally do that, straight through. So not just write my first draft, but then actually revise it, actually finish it, and then actually publish it. And it would never have happened without story structure and without story planning. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why I run these free challenges. This is why I talk about this stuff. And then, of course, that's why I also do these story planning workshops. So if you are doing NaNoWriMo this year, and I know a lot of writers are, even if you're not, but if you are, this is a great way for you to get into getting the planning done before Nano starts. And what's cool is this workshop is set up so that the final week of the workshop, you're actually writing your first draft during Nano. So it becomes just a segue right from your planning directly into writing the draft. And then you also get a bonus of, well, the workshop is 8 weeks of planning, and then you get support during the Nano phase as well so that you can finish your draft and actually get it done. So imagine December 1st, you're like, man, I've got my first draft. It's a good draft. I know the story works. And yeah, I'm going to have to make changes, but overall the story works. Imagine that, because that was never my experience with a first draft. until I started story planning. So if you want to check that workshop out, jenniferblanchard.net/nano edition, and I will put the link in for that guest post that I mentioned. If anyone has additional questions watching the replay or anything, just put them in the comments and I will answer them for you. I'm going to wrap this up because I have to go do another live stream for my Facebook group, and so I will catch you guys tomorrow. Bye.